What's up, YouTube? It's Coach Cory. Today, we are going to rank all of the brawlers from a free-to-play perspective. That means you might not have the star power for that brawler, and you might not have that many power points on them either. They might not be a high level. So with this ranking, we're not going to consider the star power of a brawler. So if that brawler has a really good star power, it's probably going to drop them down to the ranking because in this version of the ranking, they don't have star powers. So if you're a free-to-play player, or maybe you're a new player and you just don't have that many max brawlers yet, here, this video, you can figure out what brawlers are going to be best for you right now. Now, this was the video you guys wanted me to do in my poll for what I should do to celebrate 15,000 subscribers. So I have to thank all of you. You mean so much to me, all of your support, comments. It honestly motivates me to keep making videos because you guys enjoy it. Honestly, it's the only reason I do it, so I'm really glad you guys enjoy it, and thank you so much for sticking around and all the support. Now, before this, I did do ranking videos on ranking the brawlers overall with their star powers and everything, and then I also ranked the brawlers based on their star powers. So if you want to see those, there's some links above. All right, so let's just get into the ranking. Of course, this is an overall ranking considering all game modes, so you got to be good at a lot of game modes to be really good in the ranking. Now, starting out as the worst free-to-play brawler in the game, in my opinion, it's going to be Mortis. Mortis, well, one, his star power is really good. It's definitely a big help to him as a melee assassin brawler. Being able to be healed up is honestly just makes it a lot easier for him, especially towards the end game. So Mortis not having that star power, and in general, this is just not a good meta for him. It makes Mortis honestly pretty hard to use as a free-to-play player, especially since if his main attack isn't doing as much damage, it might require you to have to do a whole extra hit, which for Mortis can be a big deal. So that's why Mortis is at 21. Now at 20, we have Bo. Bo I had as the third best star power in Brawl Stars. Definitely a really good star power. And honestly, that's what makes Bo actually good, is having that star power is the reason you use Bo a lot of times, because that star power is just so unique and it's so strong on specific maps. So when he doesn't have that star power, he's not nearly as good. So as a free-to-play player, Bo is not that great without his star power. All right, at 19, we have Pam. Pam's star power actually isn't that great, but Pam isn't that great either. She's good in gem grab, and elsewhere she's just okay at best. So Pam, 19, but not that great. All right, at 18, very similar situation to the brawler before. At 18, we have Piper. Piper's really, really good in bounding. Actually, her star power is really good too. So as a free-to-play player, it can be a little bit tougher with Piper, but you can definitely still two-shot people decently well. The main thing with her star power is it allows her to maybe one-shot a little bit more. It's going to be harder to get those one-shot kills as often without her star power, but Piper's still really good in bounty, not good elsewhere, and that's why she's at 18. All right, at 17, we have a brawler who's definitely not that bad, but her star power is really good, and that's Jessie. Jessie, without her star power, not quite as useful. Being able to keep that turret up is sometimes what makes her so tough to deal with, especially in gem grab. So without that ability, she becomes a lot more normal. So in a lot of areas, she's basically just okay. Even in gem grab without her star power, she's not nearly as powerful. She's definitely usable, definitely pretty good, but elsewhere, meh, not that great. All right, at 16, we have El Primo. Now, El Primo, his star power's not that good, so you definitely don't need it for him to be useful. And honestly, I don't feel like you need a high amount of power points for El Primo to be pretty good either. He mostly relies on his really high health and just somehow being able to get in range. And once you have that super, then you can start dealing the damage to him. You don't necessarily need a really high level El Primo to do well with him. All right, now we're getting into the row of tanks. Next up, we have Bull at 15. Bull, his star power, it's not bad, but he doesn't necessarily need it. And again, a lot of these tanks very similar, that you don't really need a super high level to do well with them, because a lot of it is just first off being able to get within range of someone and then using their super in some way that gets you back in range, and then it's pretty much GG a lot of the times. You don't necessarily need a really high level. Having a decent level is definitely pretty good though. And 14 is Darrow. Honestly, really similar situation as Bull. His star power is okay. I mean, it definitely can be useful, but it's definitely not needed. So you don't really need his star power to be that great. At 13, we have the last tank. This is why I called it Tanks Row. We got Frank. All 4 tanks right in a row. They're definitely, I mean, if you're comparing it to my overall ranking, some of the tanks probably moved up. And actually, I think they all might have moved up at least 1 slot. So they're definitely a little bit easier to use, free to play than not, or maybe not easier, but not as reliant on their star power. Frank, his star power is pretty good, and honestly, the one thing I would say about Frank is his star power definitely helps a lot. You don't necessarily need it though because of his super. His super can easily help him get kills. Now, being able to 2 or 3 shot people can be important, so being able to deal more damage does matter. But Frank doesn't need his star power, and just mostly it's his super that makes him so threatening. Alright, at 12, we have a brawler who actually moved up a couple slots, was at 16 in my overall ranking. Now at 12, it's Penny. Penny, her star power, not very good. I had it as the 20th worst star power. So he definitely doesn't need it. She's pretty good overall, and honestly, I don't feel like you need a super high level with her either because her turret doesn't necessarily need a high level for that to be really effective. And that is one of the main reasons Penny is really good. That on top of her ability of her shot, that makes her pretty good in showdown. And you don't really need a lot of damage with Penny. She's not going to be getting a lot of kills by herself. So being able to dish out the damage with a bunch of hits quickly in a row with Penny isn't super important. So having a really high level with her isn't that big of a deal. All right, at 11, we have a brawler who's dropping a little bit. We got Barley. Barley was at number 9 in my overall ranking. In my free-to-play one, though, he does do a lot better with his star power. He's still going to be a pretty good brawler, and he's still going to be versatile and usable in a lot of different game modes. But without his star power, it's really going to stop him from being nearly as aggressive, and which for Barley can be really important because being able to continuously attack is really key for Barley because he's more of an area control than a really high damage brawler. So on the other hand, you don't need a super high level with Barley, but his star power is definitely makes him a lot better. All right, at 10, this brawler is staying the same. We got Crow. Crow, his star power is definitely good. He doesn't necessarily need it though to be effective. Just being able to poison people is one of the real strengths with Crow, and that stops them from healing, which is one of the main reasons Crow is pretty good in general. And it allows him to be used in a lot of different game modes, so overall, Crow is still a pretty good brawler with or without his star power. All right, at number 9, we have Ricochet. Ricochet falling a little bit compared to my overall ranking. His star power is definitely really good and gives him an edge, especially with his low health. Being able to dish out the damage as much as possible is really key with him. So having a little bit higher power level and that star power definitely just makes him a little bit easier to use. He's still a good brawler. He's still versatile in a lot of different game modes. Number 9 is still a pretty good ranking overall. Ricochet is still a good brawler, not quite as great as he can be without his star power. All right, at number 8, we have Shelley. Shelley, I don't feel like needs her star power to be successful. And overall, she's pretty good in a good amount of different game modes. So Shelley, versatile brawler, her star power is decent, but her ability to counter tanks doesn't hinge on that, and overall she can still be used in a lot of different ways. Her super still breaks down walls. She can still dish out a good amount of damage when appropriate. Shelley is definitely a pretty good brawler. At number 7, we have Spike. Spike was the second best brawler in my overall ranking, but his star power is also really good. With Spike, I feel like the level of your brawler matters a lot for him too. I've always found with Spike, he's sort of like an aggressive brawler, even though he is really low health. So being able to level him up and get more health for him can be really important, because while he does have that really low health, he tends to be somewhat close to the combat. And that, along with his star power, which allows him to use his super and hit both the enemy and heal himself, can be really useful for Spike and give him that added utility, which just keeps him alive. And without that, he can be not quite as consistent, but he still has the ability to be really good in a lot of different places. All right, at number 6, we have a brawler who's taking quite a good jump compared to my overall ranking. It's Colt. Colt to me does not need his star power to be successful. He hinges on the ability to deal damage and use his super as a utility value to break down walls and potentially reach a target like the safe in Heist. Now, he doesn't need a star power to really do any of that, and I honestly don't feel like he needs a super high level to do that too, because when you hit shots with Colt, you usually hit at least a couple. His shots are always really grouped up, so if you miss a couple shots with Colt as well, it's usually not that big of a deal. He has a pretty fast reload, and he has that long range, so even if you miss, you're not usually in direct danger of much happening. So Colt is definitely pretty good as a free-to-play player. All right, we're in the top 5 now. At number 5, we have Brock. Brock is the 5th best free-to-play brawler in the game right now. I would say his star power is not that great. He really doesn't need it to be successful. It does help him deal a little bit more damage, but throughout the course of a game, he's probably going to get a really similar amount of kills if he had that or not. I think Brock is definitely a really good brawler right now. Is usable in a lot of different game modes, and as a free-to-play player, I would definitely recommend Brock. All right, at number 4, we have Tar. Tar is just so good right now. Her star power is pretty decent, but she doesn't necessarily need it to be successful. She also doesn't really need a high level to be successful. One of the main reasons Tar is really good is because of her super. And leveling her up doesn't really make her super that much better. Sure, she does a little bit more damage, but her super always has low damage. It's just the ability to pull people in and interrupt whatever they were doing. So Tara doesn't need a really high level to be good and doesn't need her star power to be good. Tara, very good right now. This next brawler, a really similar case as well. We got Nita at number 3. Nita, her star power is definitely decent, but definitely not needed. It's not always useful. And having more damage at a higher level is, of course, who's going to complain? But with Nita, as such a fast reload speed, it's not that big of a deal. If you need one more shot, it's usually not a problem, as usually you can keep in range of that person. So with Nita, you don't need a super high level. You don't really need her star power. Nita, definitely a good free-to-play option. All right, at number 2, the second best brawler in the game as a free-to-play player is going to be Dynamite. Dynamite, I have his star power as the worst in the game, so he definitely doesn't need it to be successful. Dynamite, his main ability hinges on, of course, being able to attack over walls, but he also does good damage, and his super as well does good damage no matter what the level is. So no matter what, you're going to be 2 or 3 shotting people, depending on if you're hitting 1 or 2 Dynamite sticks. And Dynamite just does good damage overall, doesn't need super high level to be consistent, and he definitely doesn't need his star power either, in really any way, shape, or form. So Dynamite, really good as a free-to-play option. All right, at number 1, the best brawler in the game, free to play. If you haven't figured it out, it's Poco. Poco, again, doesn't need his star power either. Poco is a really strong brawler right now, usable in a lot of different game modes, mostly hinging on the ability to get a good amount of hits and consistently pump out supers. So throughout the course of the game, still does pretty good damage, and leveling up his account or his level, I mean, he ends up doing a little bit more damage, but it's not a big deal breaker because he doesn't deal a lot of damage per hit either way. It definitely helps out his super getting more healing, but I mean, sometimes you end up over-healing anyways. So Poco, really usable in a lot of different game modes, and he doesn't need a star power. He's a really good free-to-play option. Alright guys, now if you also want to see my overall ranking video, link above, and ranking the star powers of each brawler as well, links above. Guys, let me know what you think of my free-to-play ranking video. What ranks would you change? What would you do differently? And once again, thank you so much for 15,000 subscribers. I love you all. I hope you have a great day, and I will catch you later.